All right, welcome to the webinar today. I'm Dan Handford. You can see me down here on the screen as well as on your video here. I'm one of the managing partners of a company called PassiveInvesting.com. We're a private equity real estate company, primarily acquiring apartment complexes and multifamily, obviously. We also have acquisitions inside of hotels, express and some full service hotels, as well as express car washes, and then also self-storage. Those are the four primary asset classes that we're in addition to our real estate debt fund that we have. So you can go to our website, PassiveInvesting.com, and find out more information about us. Matter of fact, if I click this link right here, I think it'll take you straight to it. So you can go to PassiveInvesting.com and see kind of our portfolio that we have. We have just over $1 billion, right at 1.2 billion in assets under management right now. And of course, if you go to our current offerings, you can see the different offerings we have available. We have a project out of Savannah, Georgia that is closing soon called Mariner Grove. You can find out more information there. And of course, there's information there for our debt fund. Those are the two offerings that we have available. And then of course, if you click on the Meet the Team button here, you can go through this list of our team members and see who is part of our team. We now have over 40 full-time people that are working for us. So it's really exciting to see our team grow as we continue to expand. And so make sure that you go to our website to find out more information about us. But at the very least, for those of you who want to know a little more about me, instead of me spending so much time here, you can click on my picture there on the screen. And when you do, it'll bring you to a page with a video, which will give you some more details about myself. I live and work here in Columbia, South Carolina, married, 4 children, 3 girls and a boy, ages 11, 10, 5, and 4. So very, very busy. We also have a standard poodle named Bella. And she's actually here with me today. So if you hear her barking or hear a bark, that's probably who it is. She's probably just chasing the heron in the backyard next to the lake. So she's definitely a lot of fun too. All right, so let's go back to this page that we were on originally with our topic list for today. The topic for today is obviously around cost segregation, right? Cost segregation 101 for apartment syndication. So a lot of people don't really know what cost segregation is. So the first thing I want to do is talk about what is cost segregation and why you as a real estate investor should know. So for one, cost segregation basically is a tool that allows you to be able to have a higher amount of depreciation benefit for an asset when you acquire it. And the cost segregation can be done on pretty much any asset, whether it be a small asset, mid-sized, or even a large asset. Obviously, the larger the asset, the larger the benefit might be based on the cost of the cost segregation study. But the cost segregation allows you to be able to accelerate the depreciation. So there's 2 different types of depreciation, or really 3 different types. There is straight line depreciation, there is accelerated depreciation, and there's bonus depreciation, okay? So let's first cover the straight line depreciation. The straight line depreciation is where you can, if you buy a commercial asset, if it's a truly commercial asset, which thankfully multifamily does not actually fit into the category based on IRS guidelines as being a commercial real estate asset, because the commercial real estate assets have a 39-year depreciation, straight line depreciation schedule. The residential, or even on this situation, or this topic, the apartments, the multifamily types of assets are considered residential. And so they actually have a 27.5-year depreciation schedule. So that means that in residential, you can depreciate a lot faster your asset versus in commercial, where it takes 39 years. And so those are years and timelines that are given to us by the IRS based on their guidelines. And one of the things that they do allow you to do is, instead of using just a straight line depreciation schedule, you can now do the straight line, but also add on what's called accelerated depreciation. Accelerated depreciation is where cost segregation and the bonus depreciation is where you have that cost segregation come in. So the cost segregation is basically the IRS allows you to hire an outside engineer firm. It has to be an outside engineer firm. It can't be something done internally. You hire an outside engineer firm that comes to the property and actually analyzes the property and piecemeals it down to the sheetrock and the studs and the countertops, the appliances and the carpet and all the different component parts of the property. And depending on the different components within the property, you can now, they have different life expectancies of those particular items And so they can be accelerated, the depreciation, to a 5 to 15 year depreciation schedule. It's usually like a 5, a 15, or the straight line, right? So, but the nice thing is that a lot of it can be accelerated to those first 5 years. So let's say you bought a property for, say 10 million, right? And let's just say 2 million of it was the cost for land. Land cannot be depreciated. So there is no benefit to land from a depreciation standpoint. So you'll take that out of this. Let's say we paid $2 million for the land based on the land value. So now we're at 8 million, right? And let's say we have a depreciation schedule of 27 and a half years on this multifamily property that we just bought. Well, let's say 4 million of it would be straight line depreciation. And then maybe, 3 million would be, a 5-year accelerated schedule based on those items of the property. And then another 2 million would be for, or another million, if you will, would be for the 15-year schedule. But instead of taking that 3 million on the 5-year schedule and taking, 27 and a half years to depreciate it, you basically take that 3 million divided by 5, and that's your depreciation schedule, right? And so it allows you to really front load your depreciation, which is why you see a lot of these different types of assets on a 5-year hold, because that depreciation schedule, every time you split it into a different property, it'll reset the depreciation schedule. No matter if the person before you already took depreciation on it, it does not matter. Basically, whenever you buy an asset, that depreciation schedule for you completely resets to that original, depreciation of 5, 15, or the 27 and a half years. Sorry about that. So the cost segregation study allows you to be able to accelerate that depreciation. So you have the straight line depreciation, which if you're just going to straight line depreciate an asset and you don't need depreciation benefit, then there's no point in going the extra step and doing a cost segregation study for it. But the cost segregation study allows you to accelerate that depreciation schedule. And so you have the accelerated depreciation schedule next, and then you have the bonus depreciation. The bonus depreciation is where you have like renovations that you're doing on the property. And in years past, you could do 100% in the first 12 months of renovation of your renovations. You could actually depreciate that first year. And so it's a really, really benefit. Right now, we're kind of, after this year, we'll be in a kind of a step down of that, where it'll be like 80% the next year, 60%, 40%. There's an actual schedule that kind of like slowly does away with the bonus depreciation, unless, of course, the government and the officials decide to change that. But right now, that's what that actual piece is for. All right. So the question here is how to create more cash flow with this income tax benefit. So the way you're creating more cash flow is that you are now able to use depreciation to offset your other types of income. So if you're investing passively, you can use this depreciation to offset other passive gains. If you're investing in an asset like this and you're an active syndicator, you're an active investor in your own projects, then now you can use this to offset a lot more of your depreciation, especially if you are classified as a real estate professional. A real estate professional is someone that they're not necessarily licensed. Like I'm classified by IRS guidelines as a real estate professional, but I do not have any type of special licensure, if you will, as a broker or anything like that, or a real estate agent. You don't need that, right? Based on the IRS guidelines, if you spend at least more than 50% of your working hours in that real estate profession, and you have at least 750 hours a year in that profession working, then you can qualify as a real estate professional. Now, I'm not a tax advisor. I'm not a CPA. Make sure that you check with your CPA on any of these types of suggestions that I'm giving you. I don't want you to just take my word for it. Make sure you get that advice. Now, the nice thing about that depreciation, this is kind of where we go to this depreciation fundamentals, is that depreciation can offset other passive income or even other active income, depending on if you're classified as a real estate professional or not. And because it can offset that income, it allows you to keep that income, increasing your cash flows instead of giving it to the government, right? And so the goal with that is to take that money and to be able to reinvest it to allow you to continue to grow your net worth. Because with depreciation, you're not just like saying, hey, I don't have to pay those taxes. You're basically saying, I don't have to pay those taxes right now. So it's a tax deferral strategy, not a tax elimination strategy. So depreciation is basically kicking the bucket down the road for you to pay taxes at a later time, but allows you to keep more of the money now so you can continue to grow your nest egg over time. And so that's how you can create more cash flow and also increase your income with depreciation. Now, whenever you sell the asset, depending on what your basis is in the property, that's when you will have to have what's called depreciation recapture. And then obviously you might have, when you sell, hopefully you'll have a capital gain to pay on it, right? And then of course that goes into the whole other conversation we can have around 1031 exchanges, right? Because the 1031 exchange is where you can continue to defer those taxes even more. And if you can continue to do a 1031 exchange all the way up until you die, it passes over, when it passes over to your heirs, the basis in the property, when it passes from you to your heirs, actually resets to the current value at that time, value of the property. And that's where you have the ultimate legacy wealth building play, is to continue to 1031 exchange until you die. And then of course, when it changes over to your heirs, the basis in the property changes to the current value, and your family essentially pays zero tax on that, right? Now, if for some reason you do sell while you're alive and you don't 1031 exchange, then you would have that depreciation recapture. So, and some of you I know are newer, and so sometimes whenever you hear the word basis, you're a little bit confused about that. Like what is basis, right? Well, if you buy, let's go back to that example, right? You bought the property for 10 million, 2 million of it is land, and we're talking about just, we're just not even going to put the debt component into it all. We're just going to pretend we paid cash for the property, and you'll still be able to understand the dynamic here. But if we paid cash for the property, 10 million, 2 million of it was land, 8 million of it was depreciable. And let's just say we were able to depreciate half of it in the first, say, 5 years. I'm just coming up with numbers real quick. Let's say we were able to depreciate $5 million. And of that 5 million, let's say we only really needed to take 2.5 million benefit from depreciation. And so what I'm saying about that is that we only reduced our taxable liability by 2.5 million. So even though we could do 5 million, we only took 2.5 million, and now we have 2.5 million that's sitting there for future years if we choose to use it. So now our basis in the property is the 10 million minus the 2.5 million that we took. So our basis, instead of being 10 million, is now 7.5 million. And so when we go to sell the asset, let's say we sell the asset now and we sell it for 12 million, right? Well, now you have a depreciation recapture tax of 2.5 million, which is the 10 million minus the 7.5 million. And then you have a $2 million capital gain on top of it, because you have a $2 million, you paid 10 million, and you're selling it for 12. So now it's simple math, kind of fully understand that, but really your basis is really trying to say, where are you going to be when you sell the asset? You bought it for 10, you used 2.5 in depreciation benefit. Now your basis goes from 10 million to 7.5 million. So when you sell, you're going to have a 2.5 million depreciation recapture tax plus the capital gains tax on top of that from the gain. And so I know it's simple math, but hopefully that kind of give you a little bit more clarity on how that depreciation works and how that can actually benefit you. Now, who benefits from a cost segregation study? Obviously, as a passive investor in a project, you benefit because you get that depreciation benefit as that depreciation is coming in. You can offset the cash flow that you receive on that property, and also if you have other passive income, you can help to offset those assets as well. And then, of course, as an active real estate investor, you can have it offset as a real estate professional, not only the income coming off the properties, but also ordinary income. And what's really cool about the IRS real estate professional status is not only can you offset your income, you can also offset your spouse income if you're married and filing jointly. And so now, if you have a spouse that's working full-time and some other profession, and they're making 75, 100, $300,000 or $400,000 a year, that income can now be offset by the depreciation if you are classified as a real estate professional. Again, check with your CPA. If they don't know what I'm talking about, get a different CPA, right? They're not the right person for you if they don't even understand what the IRS professional status is. And that was the situation I was in. I had a CPA at the time, it was a great personal CPA. But then when I started doing a lot of real estate investing, he basically was challenging me, saying, I don't think that's correct. And I'm like, well, you just look it up on the articles on the website for the IRS. It clearly states it there. I knew I needed to get a different CPA because they just weren't fully understanding it. I shouldn't be doing research for them. So make sure that you have a good CPA that can really fully understand this level of detail when it comes to when it comes to this real estate professional status. All right, got one last thing here that I'm going to open up for some questions. So if you have some questions, go ahead and type it in there. I do see one has come through, so I'll address that here shortly. When should you do a cost segregation study? A cost segregation study should be done in the year that you initially buy the property. Now you can do it in subsequent years, and you can even file amended returns and do it for the past. So maybe right now you're thinking about a property that you've held on to for the last 1 to 2 to maybe 3 years or whatever. You can still do a cost segregation study now, and then take that benefit from the first time since you own the property and take it this year as well. So again, check with your CPA. Also check with the different cost segregation firms that are out there, kind of see what kind of benefits they can help you with that. But there is the potential for that, where they can actually do a cost segregation study now, and you can take those benefits that you didn't take in some of the earlier years during that investment. But you should do that in the current year. So what we usually do when we buy a property, we immediately engage the cost segregation company and get it on the calendar to be able to have them come out and do it, because towards the end of the year, end of Q3 and then into Q4, and even into Q1, it can get a little bit busy for them. So they might not be able to come around and get it done. But even if you don't get it done during the year you buy it, it's done in the next year, and you can still take that benefit for that year from a cost segregation depreciation benefit perspective. All right, let's see here. Looking forward to the conference. Great. Looking forward to having you there as well. Again, if you haven't registered for our conference it's coming up next week, called the MFIN Con Multifamily Investor Nation Conference. We have 3 celebrity guest speakers: Barbara Corcoran, Shaquille O'Neal, and Jocko Willink. So you can go to mfincon.com and register for that event and get your ticket. So it's coming up next week, June 23rd, 4th, and 5th. It's coming up pretty quick. We're all really excited about it. And we're already putting some good things into place for next year, for 2023. It's going to be held in Charlotte again, and will also be in June. And we have some announcements that we'll be doing next week for those of you who will be live on some celebrities that we have already secured for 2023. So make sure that you do that too. All right, so question here: are there any slides being shown? No, there's not. So nothing is wrong with your Zoom machine there. It's zooming through on the website here, and we don't really do slides too much with these types of webinars, but thanks for bringing that up. All right, let's see. When I invest in a syndication deal that is due to have a cost segregation plus bonus depreciation, how can I get an estimate on the proportion of depreciation credit that will flow to my K1? So typically what's going to happen is that syndication group, whatever 1031 any 1031, whatever cost segregation firm that group is using can give them a pretty quick estimate on the depreciation benefit that you can have. And so they can usually give you an estimate on your dollar amount invested. So usually if somebody invests $100,000, we can say, hey, depending on the asset, you might get a 70 to 90% depreciation benefit. So if you put in 100,000, you're going to get a depreciation benefit of $70,000 to $90,000. So you're going to see a loss of that much on the K1 for your paper losses for that particular year. All right, another lineup. I was reading Alan's note down there. Wow, what an all-star lineup. Thank you, Alan. Appreciate that. Looking forward to this event. It's going to be pretty exciting. In the past, we've done mostly virtual, as you know, and we wanted to do something more in person to be able to create some more connections and networking opportunities. So we're really excited about it as well. What is the best way to find a cost segregation firm? Matter of fact, I'm glad you asked. I will actually bring you over to this page, which is our MFIN Con page. You can see our 3 celebrity speakers there. It's going to be obviously in Charlotte, North Carolina, mfincon.com. But at the bottom of this page is our sponsors. So if you want, of course, I would highly encourage you to go to our mfincon.com page, and you will see some of our sponsors. And so you can see our sponsors that are listed here. There's one down there at the bottom, Cost Segregation Services Incorporated. So obviously you can do something with them. They're a great group there as well. A lot of times your different property management companies or a legal team can sometimes give you some recommendations as well to the different cost segregation firms that are out there. Is there a formula that you can use for the cost of a cost segregation study? Not really. Every firm is just a little bit different. And most firms, though, what I've found are going to be anywhere between $1,500 to $2,000 on kind of a smaller property. And, we have some properties that are, 100 million plus, and it can get up to about, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 for a study. But it just depends on how much work the engineer has to do when they go into the property, depending on the size of the property. All right, and how long it takes them to prepare the report. All right, let's see. I purchased a 24-unit property for $1.62 million, and I'm considering doing a desktop cost segregation study that is significantly cheaper than a full one. It's really only an option for less expensive, smaller properties. Is there anything you think I should consider before choosing the desktop study? So, Paul, the only thing I can tell you is that from what I know, and I could be wrong, but from what I know, the IRS guidelines require you to have a third party do the cost segregation study. So again, I may be wrong there, and maybe you found something different. And if you have, great. Definitely check with your CPA. Definitely check with a cost segregation firm to make sure that's legit, that you can actually do what's called a desktop cost segregation study. But the other thing too is there's a lot more liability, I think, if you were going to do it on your own versus using a third party. And for a property like that, it doesn't really cost that much. I think I've seen some properties that are around that range that are maybe $1,500 to $2,000, which I don't think is that expensive. Just depends on how much benefit you actually are going to take from it as well. Let's see. I believe the cost of the desktop study includes insurance to physically go to the property if the IRS. Oh, I see what you're saying. So you're not saying doing the cost segregation study on your own. You're saying still do a third-party cost segregation study, but instead of them going out to the property, they basically are going to do it from behind their desk based on what they know from the property. Got it. That does make sense. And again, I can't really give you advice on that. We don't do that. We always have the cost segregation firm come out to the property and do a physical walk. But I'm sure that there's probably some options for you to be able to do something like that. All right, so it looks like there's one more question in here. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be finished here in about 1 to 2 minutes. If the depreciation benefit for a $100,000 investment is $70,000 to $90,000, can you expect that depreciation benefit on your K1 over the 5-year period? No. So you can really only depreciate your initial investment of $100,000, right? Because you can't have a negative basis. So typically what will happen is you'll take that $70,000 to $90,000 the first year, and it'll be smaller years, 2 through 5. But of course, then you're going to be able to invest more money elsewhere to get an even higher depreciation benefit. So hopefully that was able to help you there with that question. Last question. I appreciate everybody jumping in and asking some questions. It always makes things go by a lot smoother. Let's refresh this screen here and see what we have available for next week. Looks like it's not available just yet. Sometimes it takes a little bit for this to update. Let me just check one more thing here. Let me go here. Sorry about that. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Let's see. There we go. All right, no, so it just hasn't been updated yet, but again, don't forget to get your ticket. Go to mfincon.com right now to secure your tickets. Look forward to seeing you next week, and looking forward to allowing you to go to rub shoulders with some of these celebrity speakers, as well as being able to network with these other high-level multifamily investors. And I will tell you that this is an event like you've never been before, and our goal is not to sell you into some coaching program. So this event is really to make sure we have a very high quality, highly curated event with only the highest level multifamily investors there. So if you want to level up your game, you want to find partners, you want to find passive investors, make sure you come to this event. Thank you so much, and we'll see you back here next week.